E3 2022 is not going to happen this year. No in-person event, no digital event, no nothing. The event has totally been canceled this year by the Entertainment Sofware Association, also known as the ESA. Let's get into this. Hey everyone, Bloodbin Bobby here. It's good to be back in my usual setup. Unfortunately, not with the happiest of news. The ESA has announced that E3 2022 has been completely canceled. There's not going to be a digital event and there's not going to be an in-person event. It's just completely canceled this year. This is what they said in a statement, quote, "We previously announced that E3 would not be held in person in 2022 due to the ongoing health risks surrounding COVID-19. Today we announced that there will also be no digital E3 showcase in 2022. Instead, we will devote all our energy and resources to delivering a revitalized physical and digital E3 experience next summer. Whether enjoyed from the show floor or your favorite devices, the 2023 showcase will bring the community, media, and industry back together in an all-new format and interactive experience. We look forward to presenting E3 to fans around the world live from Los Angeles in 2023. Look for more news and announcements soon." So on the one hand, this news is sad to me as somebody that has followed E3 on and off since 2004. I remember the very first time I heard of E3 was actually because of Nintendo Power. They had this whole section where they covered the announcements from E3 2004. This was the year where Nintendo originally announced the Nintendo DS. And I really didn't start following the convention until around 2009, and I have really fond memories of watching those press conferences and getting excited for all the announcements. I remember when for E3 2010, I remember running home so that I could watch the late Nintendo president Satoru Iwata announce or show off that prototype of the Nintendo 3DS. And of course, the next year was when they announced the Wii U. And E3 was also the event that also got me into checking out events from other publishers and developers. E3 2009, that was the very first time I watched parts of Sony's press conference. I still remember back when Sony executives like Jack Tretton and Kaz Hirai would give those big speeches showing off new games and all sorts of those announcements. So there was a lot of excitement that comes from E3. It was the one event of the year where I could look forward to not only announcements from one major company, but from really all the major industry players. It's still something I get really excited for, but these days there are a lot of challenges to holding the E3 trade show. I mean, the first one, of course, that comes up is COVID. You know, due to the pandemic, over the last couple of years, there hasn't been a in-person E3 convention. There was a online event last year. I still remember the Nintendo Direct being held that year, but due to the pandemic, there hasn't been an in-person event. And I could see, the risk that the ESA would have is that if they held an in-person event, there is that possibility that COVID cases could spike, especially being at a convention with so many people inside. It's just kind of risky. I mean, I feel like the ESA is kind of worried about situations like what The Verge reported on, where they said that this year's Game Developers Conference, also known as GDC, some people who went there caught the virus. So, especially with the kind of shaky ground that E3 is on, they don't want something like that happening at their convention. But the other reason why I think E3 is in trouble is that there are so many competitors out there. Heck, some of the same companies that put on those press conferences at E3 have gone on to form their own online shows. The one that comes up is the Nintendo Directs, for instance. Even though, yes, Nintendo Directs are sometimes held at E3, Nintendo no longer does their, big, press conferences where they have people go up on stage. Instead, these days, they have their digital Nintendo Directs. And of course, Sony left E3 and they started up their PlayStation State of Play events, and there are other competitors like the Game Awards, for instance. So the point is, these days, there are a lot of other events where publishers and developers can show off their latest announcements, whether it's newer shows that have come along or any other kinds of events that the companies themselves want to hold outside of E3, so that they don't have. I imagine they do this so that they don't have to put up the money to, have a press conference or have to go through another, or have to go through an organizer to make their announcements and so forth. So I feel like the two challenges that E3 faces these days are the pandemic and also just the amount of competitors there are out there. But the one thing that past E3 press conferences did really well was give the attendees and the press the ability to play, or the chance to play demos or new consoles that the general public wouldn't get a chance to play. I mentioned before, like for instance, I think about how all those journalists got to try out the Nintendo 3DS prototype at E3 2010, or even the Wii U at E3 2011. People got to play those demos only at E3. Of course, that was because the Wii U wouldn't be released for another year or so. At E3, the press got to play all those Nintendo Land-style demos of the Wii U before the system was released. But of course, these days, due to the pandemic, it's really risky to have those kind of in-person experiences or to go to a convention where you could only experience those demos or those prototypes. So I'm frankly not really sure what E3 could do to differentiate itself from events like the Game Awards, State of Play, or Nintendo Direct, because it seems like the strengths of E3 or what set it apart from other conferences don't really work very well in this coronavirus era. So I frankly don't have an answer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else won't. And E3, even though it's gone through shaking ground, it's still a press conference that I'm up for covering. It's still something that I look forward to. As long as the convention exists, it's still something that I really enjoy covering. And the reason I'm just gonna instantly say, oh, E3 is dead or E3 is doomed, is because I've learned in the video game industry that just because a company may be in trouble, even in like dire straits, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna become the next Sears or Kmart. Like, I think about once again bringing up Nintendo, like how Nintendo went from struggling a lot with the Wii U, but then when the Switch came out, they had a lot of success. So I'd like to see what the ESA could do with E3. Maybe they could turn it around and surprise everybody, and the E3 Expo will still be able to carry on, but I guess we'll find out next year what the ESA will be up to. I mean, who knows, maybe by next year, for all we know, maybe they're going to do some kind of like a VR experience with Facebook in the metaverse, but I'm just joking about that. I'm just goofing around. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Is E3 still a press conference that you look forward to? Are you interested in seeing what the ESA does next year when they say the show will be back? Leave all those thoughts down below. And until next time, this has been Blood Moon Bobby, and thank you all for watching. Hi everyone, thanks for watching this Blood Moon Bobby video. Like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel to see more of my videos and ring the bell to be notified about my latest uploads. Don't forget to follow me on social media for my latest opinions and video updates. I hope to see you next time.